Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Bryna Blum, your worship associate this morning. So pleased to be part of this year's Day of Atonement service, working alongside our minister, Reverend Ian W. Riddell. Before we begin, please take a moment and silence your cell phones. Here in the sanctuary, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Cahuilla people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people whose lands and water we benefit from today. In this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities and all ages and sizes. People of all economic status and professions, civic engagement, and of all physical and mental abilities. People of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here, and we are so glad you are with us this morning. It is important to us here in this community to create a safe and healthy environment for everyone who gathers in worship, including those who are immunocompromised, who have other risk factors. Our COVID protocols about vaccination and mask use are in place because we wish to do everything we can to protect all of us. A reminder that masks covering your mouth and nose are required to attend in-person worship, preferably KN95 masks. If you arrived without one, there are some available at the welcome desk. Please choose to act for the health and safety of our entire community. Our service is also available streamed on our website if you need to observe from home. If you would like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin, that's ADMIN, at uucod.org, or visit our beautiful new website, uucod.org. We have one announcement. The live and silent auctions are just 5 weeks and 5 days away. I repeat. If you haven't yet connected with Carol Lavoie to let her know what you're donating, please do it today. For those of you who might not know, this congregation loves to eat. So a hosted or delivered dinner is a great way to participate. Before we ring the Tibetan bowl, I would like to share this very personal thought with you. Those of us in this congregation who are Jewish acknowledge the diversity of our community and are deeply grateful for the love and support you provide by opening your heart to us, no matter how big or small a part of your day we are. Your presence at today's service is precious to us. It is not taken for granted because not everyone in this very broken world will sit at a Shabbat dinner or attend a Passover Seder. Jews are a very small people, and sadly, history has made us even smaller. As we once again see a rise in hatred and hear fear in the voices of our community, we are grateful for you. We hope with all our hearts that you all give to your brothers and sisters will come back to you and fill your life with an abundance of peace and love. Now, Reverend Ian will ring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service, and we will listen to our music of centering.
Come, come, whoever you are. You hear that voice calling you, calling us? That voice which calls us together here today in this room, online, made holy, this space, made holy by our presence and by the sacred breath we share in our singing and our speaking and our silence. That voice which calls us to remember that we are not alone, and that we are inextricably linked to all of life, woven into a vast tapestry of existence of which we are a powerful, integral, humble, and holy part. And just as we've been called together here today, we act as the voice, the heart, the hands of another call. The call to walk with the wanderers, to sing and dance with the worshipers, to proclaim the memory of those who have taken their leave, to wrap the despairing and the broken in the arms of love and community, and to hold the hands of all of us who have broken our vows and call us back again and again and again to the covenant and work of justice, humility, and steadfast faithfulness. For this we are here together today. So, my friends, come, yet again, come, let us worship together. And we will begin that by rising in body or in spirit and singing together our opening hymn, O Hear My People. Jeff is going to play it all the way through because it's been a while. So please rise in body or in spirit.
And the memorial candle lighting, which Steve Toproff will do for us, is dedicated to the memory of UU minister Waitstill Sharp and his wife Martha, a trained social worker, who in February 1939 boldly committed to a life-threatening mission in Europe to assist the refugees. Please read along with me. We kindle this chalice not only because it originated in antiquity, but because this symbol combats malice. This burning flame represented hope during the bleakness of World War II, a sign of refuge, meaning death was circumvented, if only for that night. Today, this beacon, shining bright, reminds us to summon the strength to extend care to those in need. We ignite this flame today for our shared humanity. We continue on with the BIPOC candle lighting. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. As most of you know, I am a Jewish Unitarian Universalist. I lean on the values of these two faiths as I try each day to be the best that I can be. I was raised by Jewish parents in a building with 89 other Jewish families on a street that had 4 buildings on each side, each holding 90 Jewish families. And so it went for many blocks around us. I guess it could be defined as a shtetl. Everyone in my elementary school was Jewish except for 2 kids, and they loved it that way because school was closed for many holidays, and they got to stay home too. My family's Judaism was mainly cultural, meaning it revolved around the holidays and food. There's that word again. Food, and abundance of glorious food. I really knew very little about my religion, except that we observed several traditions. When in mourning, we would sit on low stools and the mirrors would be covered. Also, every year on the anniversary of one's passing, we would light a candle that's called a Yortzeit candle that burns for 24 hours in their memory. And we forgave. That was the imperative, especially if it was someone in your immediate family. Jewish theology holds that forgiveness has to happen on the mortal plane between individuals before any larger or divine forgiveness can take place. This is a big deal because of the high holy days, which we are in right now. Beginning with the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and ending with the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, when tradition holds that all people are judged by God as to whether they deserve another year written in the book of life. Forgiveness is required in order to be in good standing, pardoned, or absolved of guilt. Forgiveness is not optional, it's critical. Your life literally depends on it. Ultimate forgiveness can't even begin to happen until we've made things right with the people we've hurt. Perhaps the most important point, according to the Jewish system, is that the onus to invoke forgiveness is on the wrongdoer, not the wronged. The wrongdoer is the one responsible for winning any forgiveness that might follow on what's been done. The system is very explicit about what is owed and what is done. These steps are non-negotiable. The wrongdoer does a bad thing, which hurts someone else. The person who has hurt can just stay hurt. As far as forgiveness goes, they don't have to do anything. It's up to the person who did the injury to 1, own up and admit what they did. 2, apologize and ask for forgiveness. 3, offer to make it up to the injured person however they can, however the injured person chooses. Here's the crucial part. The wrongdoer must take all these steps with the actual person they hurt. It's not enough to process it yourself, resolve to make it up in ways we think make sense, or talk it over with a therapist or another confessor. In Judaism, no absolution can take place unless the admission and atonement happen with the person who suffered the wrong. This is true no matter what. No matter how much we go to worship services or pray privately, no matter how many good deeds we do to atone or outweigh the wrong, there is no access to larger forgiveness. Here's another kicker. We're not off the hook unless the person we've wronged says we are. In other words, if we wrong someone and go through all the steps of admitting it to them, asking truly for their forgiveness, and asking to make up to them somehow, they can still say no. At this point, things get complicated. According to Jewish law, this exchange goes back and forth 3 times. If forgiveness is still refused, then the rabbi can be brought in to help out. While the onus is on the wrongdoer to initiate the interaction, there is also some pressure now on the one wronged. The apology and the forgiveness have to be genuine in order to be meaningful, which enjoins the wrongdoer to really offer an authentic apology. On the receiving end, being authentically apologized to and receiving offers to make it up to us, even if there's nothing more to be done, hopefully makes it more possible to accept the apology and find in our hearts this space and spirit of forgiveness. The atonement process shouldn't only be Jewish, should not be a once-a-year conversation. This model of apology, forgiveness, and atonement is good year-round for everyone. There is a lesson and power here for all of us. It means living into our principles, affirming and promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are all a part.
And now we will take some time to collect an offering for the support and thriving of this congregation. I invite you to give as generously as you can as the ushers come forward. If you are at home online, you can click on the link that you found in your order of service today, or the link that will come to you very soon. Please give generously.
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzi Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzi Leolam. Ki tahu melech Adon lecha shalom. Ki tahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dared to dream really do come true. V'tov b'necha u'rarech et simcha Yisrael b'chol u'b'chol shah b'shlomecha. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why? Then oh, Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzil Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzil Leolam. Tatzim Leolam. Tatzim. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Trying our best in our congregation now as we broadcast online and do all sorts of things like that. Do our best to honor copyright law and support artists and creators. I reached out to the publisher of today's Time for All Ages story, and they asked that I share this before I share it with you. The Hardest Word, which is the story we're going to share today, by Jacqueline Jules, illustrated by Catherine Janice Kahn, is read with the permission of Car-Ben Publishing, and all the rights are reserved. We're not going to see the pictures today, but they wanted to share that. And Julie, I think it was, who emailed me back, also said, thank you so much for sharing this story. She said they were really grateful when non-Jewish congregations used their works. So, a long, long time ago, the world had many large and fabulous creatures, things we don't really see anymore, not because they're not there necessarily, but we just don't see them. One of these creatures was a gigantic yellow bird with dark red wings and a purpley forehead. He was called the Ziz. The Ziz was so huge that when he spread out his wings, he blocked the sun, as if he was a dark rain cloud. Every time he flew over a town, all the mothers would call to their children, "Come inside quickly before it rains." This made the big Ziz sad. He loved children and didn't want to spoil their playtime. So the Ziz started flying around at night when no one would notice that he made the sky dark with his gigantic wings. That worked fine for a while, but then one night the big Ziz flew too high and he bumped into a star. Sizzle, snap, bang, the star fell out of the sky and down to the earth and burned a big hole in the ground. The next morning when the Ziz saw the big hole, he was worried. Well, what can I do to cover the hole, he thought. He thought about it for a while and came up with an idea. He stretched out his huge wings and went back up in the sky. This time he knocked down a cloud. Plop, the cloud was full of rain, and it filled the big hole with water, and now the hole was a lovely pond, perfect for swimming. All of the children came running to the pond, screaming with delight. It was a hot, sunny day, and they had a wonderful time splashing and playing in the water. Whew, that mistake is all fixed, said the Ziz. One day, however, the Ziz made a mistake he could not fix. It was the week before Yom Kippur. He was flying along, not watching where he was going, and flew smack into the tallest pine tree in the world. Boom. Thank you, everybody. A little scent for the evening, for the morning. So, the Ziz made a mistake he could not fix. It was the week before Yom Kippur, and he was flying along, again, not watching where he was going, and he flew smack dab into the tallest pine tree in the world. Boom. The tree fell over and knocked over another tree. That tree knocked down another tree and another, and that tree fell on the vegetable garden behind the synagogue. Smash, squash, oops. The Ziz stared at the damage. All the vegetables the children had worked so hard to plant were smashed to bits. I can't knock down a cloud and fix that, said the Ziz. So the Ziz spread out his wings and flew off to have a chat with God. The Ziz had a special place where he liked to talk with God. It was Mount Sinai, and the Ziz was so huge that when he stood on Mount Sinai, his purple feathered head reached right up to heaven. What have you done this time? God said. Well, I knocked over a big tree. It knocked over another tree, and that tree smashed a vegetable garden. The children's garden? God questioned. Yes, said the Ziz. That's a problem, God said. What should I do? Said the Ziz. Well, I want you to search the earth and bring me back the hardest word, God said. Hardest word? The Ziz asked. Yes. Now go, said God. So the Ziz went off to search. He flew over mountains, he flew over trees, he flew over valleys, he flew over seas. And after searching the whole day, the Ziz stopped to rest at the edge of a forest. In a little house nearby, he heard a father and child arguing. I don't want to go to bed, the little boy said. Well, you need your rest, said the father. I'm not tired, the little boy cried. Good night, the mother said firmly. The Ziz flew as fast as he could back to Mount Sinai. I found it. I found the hardest word. What is it? God said. It's good night. Every child hates that word. Well, that is a hard word, said God, but there is a word that's even harder. So the Ziz flew off to search. He flew over mountains, he flew over trees, he flew over valleys, he flew over seas. After searching all day, Ziz stopped at a big feast. He listened. With so many people talking, he felt sure someone would say the hardest word. I'm hungry, a little girl said to her mother. May I have some pescetti, please? The mother said, oh, you want spaghetti. That's it, said the Ziz. I've got it now. And the Ziz flew back as fast as he could to Mount Sinai. I found it. I found the hardest word. What is it? Asked God. It's spaghetti. Well, that is a hard word to say, said God, but there is another word that's even harder. So the Ziz flew off again to search. He flew over mountains. He flew over trees. He flew over valleys. He flew over seas. He searched for 3 more days. He brought back lots of words to Mount Sinai, words like rock and rhinoceros and ridiculous and Rumpelstiltskin. Each time God sent the Ziz to find another word. It was the evening of Yom Kippur now. The Ziz had brought over 100 words to Mount Sinai. God had not accepted any of them. The Ziz was discouraged. He had tried, and he flew back to Mount Sinai to have one more discussion with God. What word did you bring this time? God asked. No word, the Ziz said silently. I've come to say I'm sorry. I can't find the hardest word. You're sorry? God asked. Yes, the Ziz nodded his big purple head. I'm sorry. Good job, said God. You found the hardest word. I did? Yes, the hardest word is sorry. I always say I'm sorry on Yom Kippur, the Ziz said. Well, you should say it other times too, said God. Like when I smashed the garden, Ziz asked. That's right, God said. So the Ziz thanked God and pulled his purple-feathered head out of heaven. Then he spread his great big wings and flew back to the children's garden. On the way, he stopped at his own garden and gathered a big basket of fruits and vegetables for the children. It was time to say the hardest word. Will you take a breath with me and let it out? This is the time in our service where we share the joys and sorrows of this congregation, the things in our lives that weigh on our hearts, the parts of the world that cause us joy or wonder or grief. And so we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Cheryl Eaton lights a candle to mourn the loss of her longtime friend, Stuart Lenny. She says, I'll always remember the good times. The bad ones are long forgotten. Candle we light in memory of all those senselessly murdered through the years. We light a candle of care for Susan Hannon, who is home with COVID. We light a candle for Joey, who is in the ICU. And I light a candle in honor, in worry, in care, and in hope for all of those impacted by the weather this week, especially those whose lives have been torn asunder by Hurricane Ian. Feels a little personal. But I will say, we hold all of those people in our hearts. And if you are looking for a way to help them, the Unitarian Universalist Disaster Relief Fund is accepting money. There is a link on our Facebook community page, and there will be a link going out in this week's newsletter. But please do what you can. And I want to take a moment now. This morning we lit our memorial candle in remembrance of Waitsfield Sharp and his wife Martha, but we also light it and hold in our hearts all of those whose lives were stolen by the hands of the Holocaust, by the hands of hatred in the Holocaust, lost in camps and ghettos, shtetls, streets, and forests, families broken, futures destroyed, possibility eradicated. We lit this candle, too, for those who survived, whose lives and loves and work in the world bear witness to the courage and resilience of so many people. May we carry in our hearts and our lives the possibilities of all of their lives. May we mourn their loss with reverence and grief and hope. May we honor their lives with a commitment to reshape the world so that never again is not an empty cry, but a lasting reality. Inspired by those who fought to save people, and with the joys and sorrows of this community, the reality of the world around us, and our deep honoring of those lost to hatred in our hearts, we pause now in quiet, letting love and peace and fierce resolve fill our hearts and minds. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. I invite you now to join your voice as we sing together our hymns for meditation, Spirit of Life and Fuente de Amor. We may remain seated. One of the great joys, one of the benefits, one of the wonderful things about being part of this Unitarian Universalist community is that we are not alone in our building. We share with many other groups, but especially we share our home, our space with the Desert Outreach Synagogue, who meets here regularly and especially this time of year gathers to celebrate the High Holy Days. They did last week and will be coming back again this week. We're so grateful that they are making this place their home as well, and I'm grateful that Rabbi Jules King and Rabbi Rachel Axelrod are here this morning. We're just really grateful for your presence as part of our community. Thank you. A while ago, I preached to you about the knitting, surprise, and the ways that we might see the world and our relationships through the lens of the craft of knitting. I talked about the fact that in knitting it was possible to knit back in some way, sometimes easily, sometimes with more difficulty and a little more swearing, and correct errors. And I said that we might learn from that practice, a practice of going back and fixing mistakes in relationships. Times we'd hurt someone or neglected them. You can knit back, I said. I briefly talked about apologizing, about promising not to do the thing again that way, but I didn't really go into too much depth. But this kind of skill of going back to times we've hurt someone or been hurt, this skill is an important one in the toolbox that we are imagining we have as we work to build this beloved community. Bryna, I'm really grateful for the way you laid that out this morning. Last week we talked about the tool we call resilience. And so this week I want to spend some time talking about a tool called apology. Take a deep breath. I chose today to talk about apology, about making amends, about atoning for our mistakes, because we are in the latter half of what our Jewish neighbors and kin hold as their high holy days. The 10 days between the celebration of the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which was last Monday, and the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, this coming Wednesday. Through fasting and prayer, Jews are called to attend to the lives that they have been living, admit and make amends for the ways in which they have fallen short in their lives and relationships, and make new their commitment to living holy lives. I find it powerfully meaningful to know that our Jewish neighbors have built into their tradition, at the heart of the ritual year, the idea that we do actually fall short on a regular basis. The very holiday implies that it is expected that we will stray from the path of our intentions, mess up, and hurt ourselves and others. It's not a good thing that we do this, but these holy days remind Jews that perfection is basically impossible, that it's the way of the world. And so today feels like an appropriate day for us to focus on apology, on getting right with each other and ourselves. It has been my habit as a minister to set aside one Sunday this time of year to focus on this area because I feel like we have a lot to learn from our neighbors. We Unitarian Universalists are often really good at celebrating the happy side of human nature, successes, hopes, possibility. We're really good at imagining what we can do to make the world better. And it feels really important for us to also realize and be realistic about the mess that we can be part of, and to see that we can build stronger relationships, more resilient communities when we see that we have erred and do the work of repair. So I'm inspired today, and especially today by the writing of two contemporary Jewish women writers and one 12th century Jewish sage. Now, before I go further, I want to acknowledge that today I'm grounding my words much more in the words of others than I usually do. It's not quite a book report, but a little more than usual. And I will tell you, there are a couple of lists. They don't go higher than your 10 fingers, though. So, Rabbi Danya Rutenberg is a progressive writer and scholar who serves as scholar in residence at the National Council of Jewish Women. She was ordained in 2008 and has published 8 books focused on justice, parenting, deepening individual religious practice, and feminism in Judaism. And she's a vocal and powerful presence on social media, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, speaking for loving progressive values in the face of growing fascism and online abuse and white supremacy. Her newest book, released just a couple of weeks ago, is called On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World. In it, she focuses on the ways in which our American culture seems to value quick resolving of harm, apologies that aren't really apologies, and a real refusal to do the hard work of repenting and atonement. Certainly, she writes, our culture's thirst for instant gratification feeds the desire to resolve challenges quickly, to privilege immediate catharsis over the hard, painstaking work of process and transformation, end quote. We also focus on individual rights at the cost, she says, of our understanding of the responsibilities we have to each other as members of communities. While honoring a deeper Protestant tradition that does focus on our responsibilities to each other, she points out that a Protestant emphasis on salvation by faith alone, and, quote, emphasis on one's inner state over one's outward actions, and, quote, has led us to paying more attention to what an individual attended over the impact of their actions on people or communities. As the children of this Protestant tradition, we, Unitarian Universalists, our ears might benefit from being open to these admonitions. Her writing calls on examples of individual damage and attempts at repair, as well as on larger, more public episodes like responses to the revelations of the Me Too movement and other recent attention to calling out individual and systemic abuse. She decries the swift call for unity without the work of repentance and atonement, demands for instant forgiveness before the struggle of amends and altered behavior. It's longer and deeper work than a post on Instagram or a tweet or a simple press release will satisfy. Rutenberg grounds her exploration of these themes and of the needs of our day in her own tradition, and specifically in the tradition and practices explained and outlined by Jewish sage, philosopher, and legal thinker Maimonides. He was a Sephardic Jew who lived from 1189 to 1204 and was one of the most prolific and influential Torah scholars of his era and after. I got those dates wrong, I apologize. His work, one of his works, the Mishneh Torah, compiled and crafted in the 1170s, stands as his magnum opus and one of the most complete and comprehensive expressions of Jewish legal, religious, and social practices of the era. It summarized the oral tradition and the Talmudic writings that came before it. It is this work which Rutenberg studies as she is exploring the themes of reconciliation and repentance. She writes, Maimonides, in his landmark work, codified and developed earlier traditional thinking, itemizing very specific steps to this process, including public confession of harm, particularly our approach to making amends, and deep transformational work that culminates in changed actions. Maimonides outlined a 5-step process by which people were called to make repentance. And you may hear some echo of this in the words that Bryna shared with us earlier. The first step is to name and own the harm. Say something like, I did that thing you said I did. Not vaguely, I behaved badly, but I did X and Y and they caused you harm. Holding up the importance of being clear that we understand what we have done and acknowledging that. The second step is to start to change, to stop the behavior that got us in trouble in the first place, to choose to be different with people in similar and other situations. Start to change. Third step is restitution and accepting consequences. Repaying that which you've stolen, replacing that which you've destroyed, working to remove the effects of what has been done, and accepting the consequences. Rutenberg thinks about this in more public ways as she shares the situation of a school which has been complicit in allowing an abuser to continue abusing students. In this case, the school leadership eventually chose not to negotiate quiet settlements with students and families, but to allow lawsuits to continue, so that they had to deal with the full consequences of their action and inaction and the publicity that came with it, understanding that there was no way to build trust going forward without truth and humility. Think about the institutions that we know, many of them who've been accused of these kinds of things, who have wheedled and not allowed, not accepted the consequences of their action. The fourth step is an apology. Note that that's the fourth step for Maimonides, that all of this other work, all of this other introspection and change and starting to do the work of repentance has happened before the apology. I'm going to come back to apologizing in a little bit. And then the fifth step for Maimonides is making different choices. How do I change my behavior, my setting, my context, my habits, my ways of thinking, so that I am not in a position to repeat that offense or ensure that I will make different choices if this situation repeats itself? 5 steps. So apology is step number 4 for Maimonides, apology. And I want to take a little bit, we're going to jump back to our time now to think about apologies. And I want to introduce you to Harriet Lerner. Harriet Lerner is a Jewish clinical psychologist whose primary work has been shifting traditional psychoanalysis toward more feminist and relational understandings. Her books for the general public center the experiences and needs of women and families. Her first book, The Dance of Anger, was one of the earliest public works to address women's anger specifically from a psychological perspective. Her latest book, which was published in 2017, is called Why Won't You Apologize? Healing Big Betrayals and Everyday Hurts. I would highly recommend that book, Rutenberg's book too. Or if you don't have the time to read a book right now, listen to Harriet Lerner's 2-part conversation with Brene Brown in Brene Brown's podcast. It's a really wonderful conversation. In that conversation, she said, I believe that the words, those 2 words, I'm sorry, are the most important words in our language. Like Rutenberg and Maimonides, she knows that we are all imperfect and mess up all the time. It's a fact of our existence. And so we will need to apologize and hear apologies if we are involved in any kind of relationship. She says, and when they're done right, apologies are very healing. But when apologies are absent or they go south, it will compromise a relationship, or it can lead to the end of a relationship. Now, I told you this sermon would be a little listy, and now we come to a second list. Lerner, in her writing and in her conversation, just doesn't tell us apologies are important. She says, here are 9 essential ingredients for a true apology. Some of this might make you a little uncomfortable or wince a little bit as you remember your own self. It's true for me too. I'm going to read each one aloud, and then I'm going to share a couple of examples or a little reflection. You might think of examples of your own. A true apology does not include the word but. I'm sorry I was rude to you. Not, I'm sorry I was rude to you, but you said some unhelpful things. True apology does not include the word but. 2, a true apology keeps the focus on your actions and not the other person's response to those actions. Not, I'm sorry you felt offended, or I'm sorry you feel hurt. How about, I'm sorry I hurt you? That one's really tricky. That one cuts close to me, so I'm just taking a moment there. Number 3, a true apology includes an offer of reparation or restitution that fits the situation. How can I fix this situation? How can I repay you or replace what was damaged or lost? The fourth step to a true apology. A true apology does not overdo. Be clear. Be specific. Don't apologize for existing. Don't wail that you are a horrible person. Apologize for the thing you did. Don't overdo. A true apology does not get caught up in who's more to blame or who started it. Not, if you hadn't done that or said that, I wouldn't have. Lerner jokes about her own challenges around this one, sharing a situation in which she calculated that she was about 43% to blame for what happened, and that her husband was therefore 57% to blame. That apology, she reports, did not go well. I had a situation in my own past where I had a relationship where I acknowledged that I hurt the other person, but I got stuck on the conviction that they had hurt me too, which was probably true, but I didn't want to be the one to apologize if the other person wasn't also going to apologize for what they'd done to me. I got stuck there, and it went on far too long with me being recalcitrant about that and had serious implications for the relationship. 6, a true apology needs to be backed by corrective action. Do what you say you are going to do to make amends, to repair or replace, to stop doing the thing causing harm. You heard a little bit of Maimonides in that. 7, a true apology requires you to do your best to avoid a repeat performance. Like Maimonides' 5th, how do I change my behavior, my setting, my context, my habits, my ways of thinking so I'm not in a position to repeat the offense, or that I will make different choices if the same situation arises. 8, and this one is hard. A true apology should not serve to silence others. Have you ever been in a situation where you've done some harmful thing and the person you've hurt is sharing the impact of what you've done, and you blurt out a quick apology, and then the person continues to share with impact has happened, and you blurt out, but I apologize, can't we just move on? I love technology until I don't. There we are. Were you in that moment when you said, I'm sorry, seriously expressing remorse or acknowledging what you've done, or were you just apologizing so they'd stop sharing their hurt and you'd feel less uncomfortable? Sit with that for a moment. And the 9th one, for Lerner anyway, a true apology does not ask the hurt party to do anything, not even to forgive. Here's where she's a little different than the other practices we have heard today. We apologize because it is the right thing to do. The choice to forgive is in the hands of those we have hurt. We can hope for forgiveness. We can make restitution. We can change our behavior, but the choice to forgive is out of our hands. Being forgiven isn't the reason we apologize. Lerner says, we apologize because it is the right thing for us to do. You'll notice, I think, that Lerner's ingredients really do incorporate many of the processes identified by Maimonides all those centuries ago, contain the processes that Bryna brought to us earlier in the service. They're in a different order. They have a little different focus at times, but they are clearly cousins to each other. Ancient religious wisdom and modern psychological understanding hold up the importance of these practices. I have talked about our right relations policy and practices before today, reminding you about them, sharing how they grow out of our values and our covenant. But I know that we've not spent a lot of time looking together at what the policy actually says and how we hope we will all learn to live into it together. The Committee on Ministry and I are hoping that you will join us over the coming months as we share some opportunities for all of us to become more familiar with these documents and the ways of being together that we hope will grow in our community. As I said, the policies grow out of our values and out of our covenant with each other. And they also grow from the understanding that we are fallible human beings. And even when we have the best of intentions, even when we have the best intentions about learning how to apologize well, we can hurt each other. Rabbi Rutenberg grounds her study of Maimonides in the knowledge that we all cause harm sometimes, for many reasons, sometimes intentionally, sometimes as a result of carelessness or apathy, sometimes because we come to situations not our best selves. And of course, we have all been harmed. She writes, we all nurse stories about the tender places where we have been bumped, cut, battered by others, by people, institutions, or systems. End quote. And we can also be bystanders to harm. We can see it happen in front of us or read about it in the news or on social media. We are human, and we are hurt and hurt by each other. This is why we want to develop practices among us to help us navigate when this happens. Together, we hope we're figuring out how to be together in more loving ways, to call each other to our better selves, to return again and again, calling those of us who have broken our vows to repair relationship and reknit ourselves into the beloved community. My opening words this morning were based on a song that we often sing in this congregation, Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer. You know that song. Well, there's another part to the song, sung in many places, though, that we aren't used to singing here. It's an ostinato, a repeated pattern that's sung along with the main melody. It goes like this. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come. The song and our values, our promises to each other and to this beloved community call us to return again and again to each other with humility and hope, to return to the home we have built for our hearts, to return to our best and most loving selves, and to see each other and our own selves as holy and worthy, and humbly reach out to each other and embrace possibility, connection, justice, and love. Will you join me now as we sing our closing song, Return Again? We'll remain seated for this. Sing the first part twice, second part twice, and go back and sing the first part twice again. It's pretty straightforward. I think if you don't remember it, you'll find out how it goes as we go. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Thank you.
I'm sorry to ask you this. Please just take a deep breath. That was a lot. It was a lot. Yes. Please join me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Sometimes sermons are classes. But it's important work, and I'm grateful for your ears. Rabbi Danya Rutenberg writes, "We can never undo what we have done. We cannot go back in time. We can't ask anybody else to go back in time. We write history with our decisions and our actions, but we also write history with our responses to those actions. We can leave the pain and the damage in our wake unattended, or we can do the work of acknowledging and fixing, to whatever extent possible, the harm that we have caused. With this call to rebuilding, to repentance, to repair in our hearts and our hands, we end our time together today, returning to the work and play and interaction of our daily lives. In the face of all of this, we still celebrate being alive. And so go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world, and remember to celebrate life."